Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to continue our look at Two-Fisted Tales, the amazing war comic published by EC Comics. This is number 11, and pretty much it's the same team. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That was Harvey Kurtzman's philosophy. And when you got like four of the best artists in the world working for you, why mix it up? And included in that list is Harvey Kurtzman doing the cover once again. Another incredibly dynamic cover, explosive, if you will. And we see a tank that was carrying wounded soldiers hitting a mine, and all the wounded soldiers are flying everywhere. Talk about war as hell. This is just, it's not like action like a Sergeant Rock or Sergeant Fury. It's just like horrible. It's like, oh man, war is brutal. So now we start off with Checkers. This takes place in Korea in August 1951. Once again, all the stories in this issue are written by Harvey Kurtzman, and this particular story is penciled by John Severin, inked by Bill Elder. So I guess the fighting's been stabilized. They're doing peace talks in Korea, and we see these two soldiers, these two tank commanders, Strauss and Kilpatrick, and they're playing a game of checkers. Strauss is really pondering this next move, taking his time, and Kilpatrick is like, come on, hurry up, we gotta get going. And he does this great move. He basically jumps three of his men. And then he runs off. He says, okay, we gotta go. And Kilpatrick is just like, wait a second. He's like, we'll finish the game when we're done. We got work to do. We're in the army, we're in the Marines or whatever. So these tank commanders have a mission. Apparently there was a platoon that was ambushed. They've got a lot of wounded, and they're gonna send the tanks out to rescue these men. Now they're gonna use basically a checkerboard code. And, for example, forward is King's Row, back is Queen Row, right is Duke Row. So using checker moves to kind of code their strategy. So our two guys here, Strauss and Kilpatrick, get in their tanks and they rumble off. Man, I just can't get over this Benno lettering. It just always looks so good. Also, once again, this Severin Elder art is just as tight as can be. It's so sharp, and the coloring is amazing. Once again, I'm pretty sure Marie Severin is coloring at this point. This is some really just beautiful looking stuff. So they make it to the site where this platoon is ambushed. There's tons of guys wounded all around. So they designate one tank to be the Angel of Mercy tank, and they basically pile these wounded soldiers on this tank as if it was just a big, ambulance. The other tanks circle them and to protect them, and then the Angel of Mercy tank hits a landmine, just like on the cover. All these poor wounded guys just get thrown back on the ground. And then right then, an anti-tank gun of the North Koreans starts opening fire on them. So the tank commanders say, button up, get in your tanks. And now we get to see the checkerboard strategy. So Rudolph to Strauss moving one black in Duke and Queen Row. And he totally does this crazy backup maneuver, avoiding a missile. And then Kilpatrick, he says, moving to Red Square in Duke Row. And he zips in front here, like a checkers move. And now Strauss, he says, I'm going to jump you. And he says, Strauss, I don't think that's good. Don't. And he does. He basically pulls out in front of him right into the trajectory of a missile. So him and his men have to bail out. And Luckily, though, the other tanks get a bead on this anti-tank gun, and they blow it to smithereens. Look, I love these, like, panels, just the 3 blue panels firing, and then the guys getting ready again, readjusting their aim, firing again. There's something really just graphically pleasing about that. All culminating in this all yellow panel. So then they get back to the base, and Kilpatrick says, wait a second, we got to finish that game before we do anything. And Kilpatrick totally jumps Strauss like 5 times. And he says, you made the same mistake back there at the battle. You shouldn't have jumped me. Let's go eat. Next, we have Pell's Point with some more fucking beautiful art by Wally Wood. I gotta say, I don't quite understand the story. It kind of has this twist ending, but I don't understand the beginning here. So, this takes place during the American Revolution. At the start, it's 1776. And we see this American soldier. And this is about the the Battle of Pell's Point. Now we see this guy, and I don't know if he's, has war fatigue, but he just keeps thinking to himself, he that fights and runs away may turn and fight another day. He keeps repeating it. And then he finally says, how does it go? How does the rest of the poem go? What's the end of that poem? He can't think of it. Man, look how, that's beautiful fucking art right there. And this, once again, is amazing coloring. Now look at this, guys. Where his feet are, it almost seems like he's floating over the ground. I didn't even notice this the first time. I'm pointing it out now. We're going to come back to this page because the twist ending. And now the camera pulls out and we see the Isle of Manhattan. And then it zooms back in. So it's October 1776. The Continental Army is kind of beaten. They're basically being chased by the British up the length of Manhattan Island. The British Navy, they sail past Washington's troops up the river, and they're going to cut them off. And they land at Pell's Point. I think it's in Long Island. They'd throw a line of soldiers across Washington's line of retreat, and they're planning to just destroy the Continental Army. This is basically a turning point. This could have changed the whole outlook of the war. We might have not won the Revolutionary War if this battle went a different way. So the English are commanded by Sir William Howe. He's very confident of victory, maybe a little too overconfident. Now we see the American soldiers awaiting this vast army of British soldiers. They're like outnumbered like 5-1. And the Americans are calmly and bravely just waiting for the redcoats to get into range. They keep calling them lobsters. It's like, we Massachusetts fishermen know how to handle lobsters. They also see the Hessian mercenaries. And this is just so weird. I remember studying this in grade school even, how the British had this, honorable way of fighting. It was basically really stupid, where they would just march up to the enemy and almost wait for them to attack them first and then they'd finally shoot. So that's what the British do. They just, like toy soldiers, just walk up to the Americans and allow the Americans to do this huge barrage of bullets. There's smoke everywhere, so they say, wait for the smoke to lift. We'll see how we did. Get ready with the bayonets. And look at this carnage. It's almost like the whole front line of these British soldiers are dead. So the British pull back. But then also the American, the General Glover, he's ordered the Americans to pull back. I guess they're going to meet up with some reinforcements. But this one guy, Jamie, the guy with the feather in his hat, he says, I'm not pulling back. I have no fear of lobsters. Not Jamie Kemp. And so he basically goes out into the field to grab a souvenir. And he's daring the British soldiers to shoot at him. Kind of dumb. So most of the American army retreats, but some remain as a holding action. Of course, Jamie stays. He says, I'll wait for the British. He's got one of their helmets on his gun. So once again, they fire at these British who are just lined up like toy soldiers, and they kill a lot more. So Jamie once again runs out and says, I'm going to get a Hessian souvenir now from one of the Hessian soldiers. And he gets shot, and he's wounded. So he's basically trapped up against this tree. These Hessian soldiers have him surrounded, and the British General Howe, he orders his men to advance since the Americans are retreating. They cross a river, and Howe doesn't want to pursue. I guess there's cannon on the other side of the river, American cannon, and he says, we'll wait. We'll wait for reinforcements before we press our advance. And now, once again, the camera pulls way out, like a satellite photo. So that's the end of the Battle of Pell's Point. And General Howe waited so long that it gave Washington time to evacuate the island with all of his supplies and baggage, and of course all of his soldiers. Had the British landed without being noticed, they might have trapped Washington. The whole war could have gone differently. But the British didn't use their superior forces, and Washington's army slips away. And now this last panel, which is fucking amazingly drawn. This is so eerie, and we see Jamie. It looks like the Hessians hung him up. And finally, he can remember the rest of that verse. He that fights and runs away may turn and fight another day, but he that is in battle slain will never rise to fight again. And just the coloring there, it's, the full moon's out, it's night. That's amazing stuff. So I said I was going to go back to the first page. So I guess, he's dead here. We don't see him hanging from a rope. We don't see a rope around his neck or anything. But he does seem to be hovering. So I guess that's just some, death hallucination. But, I don't know. It's a little unclear. Still a really engaging story, and I still love that ending. But I think the beginning didn't quite prepare us for it, or I don't know. It's kind of a cheat. God, Wally stuff. Okay, we have the letter page. We have the fine arts page. And now we have another story. Supposedly this little illustration here is Harvey Kurtzman. It's called Submerge. I strongly suspect Harvey Kurtzman wrote this, because this is barely a story. It's almost like this declaration. We are the displacers of the sea, the submariners. We are the mowers of the seaweed in the coral gardens of Neptune. And then they just go into all this very technical talk about how submarines operate, how they attack the enemy, using lots of, quotes around certain phrases that are obviously specific to the submariner. And that seems so Harvey Kurtzman. Harvey Kurtzman did a crazy amount of research. A lot of people would say maybe obsessive. And he liked to show it off. And we see this in his comic stories continually, where there'll be 4 panels where it's just kind of like, hey, I'm going to show that I know exactly how this gun works and whatever. And I'm pretty sure, I would guess this is Harvey Kurtzman writing as well. Next, we have a beautiful Severin solo piece, Alamo. And this is an interesting take on the Alamo, because it's told from a Spanish soldier's point of view. Or Mexican soldiers, I should say. And basically the Alamo, we start off the story, the Alamo has already been decimated. All of the Texans have been killed except for 5. And General Santa Anna has ordered them to be slain. Now we see basically the thought balloons of this one soldier. And he just thinks this is all crazy. And he says, I don't want to be part of this massacre. I don't want to kill these 5 guys. Like it just seems, I guess there's no Geneva Convention then, but, it's against that, the spirit of that. It's not like he sympathizes with the Texan cause. He says, yeah, they're revolutionists. They defied Mother Mexico. They seized the Alamo by force. And now we flash back to the actual battle. So when General Santa Anna showed up, he went to a local church that could be seen from the Alamo and raised a red flag, which basically means no quarter will be given. We're not taking prisoners. This artist, once again, is so nice. I like Severin Elder, but I also like seeing Severin by himself. So even then, he's not into it. He doesn't want to kill every last man in the Alamo. He just wants them to surrender. And so they slowly dig this trench closer and closer to the Alamo, and then just start pounding away at the walls with cannon fire. It takes a while, but slowly the cannons erode these walls until there's no protection left for the Alamo defenders. Like John Severin, studied every, helmet in the Mexican army, what they wore. He was known for that. I mean, Harvey Kurtzman demanded no less. But from what I've heard, John Severin was just good on his own. He didn't need prodding. And the whole time, this guy just keeps saying, my heart's not in this. I don't want to do this shit. So finally, it's time to charge the Alamo. It seems like every 10 feet they advance, the 150 defenders of the Alamo would take 20 Mexican soldiers with them. They're just fighting like cornered animals. They're fighting for their lives. The Texans cut them down like wheat. 150 Alamo defenders versus 4,000 soldiers. So now the Mexican soldiers are getting angry. And so more cannon is rolled up, and they just start firing into these buildings with scrap metal, basically shrapnel, right? We see Davy Crockett. They trapped him in the courtyard and with 2 other men. Before they could mow him down, they took 10 of the soldiers with them. Even Jim Bowie, who was sick in bed, he killed a bunch when they barged into his room. And so finally, the Santa Anna just says, let's not even get close to these guys. Let's just keep firing scrap metal into every building. We'll just, mow them down that way. So now we're back to the present, where he's on the firing squad, our protagonist here. He's in the firing squad to kill these guys. And he basically says, I'm not doing this shit. I'm going to miss on purpose. So he thinks to himself, my conscience is clear. But then the general says, you, Morelos, that's his name, you will kill any of those still breathing. And he just says, oh man, what's the chances of that? The guy who rebels against the killing of the last man, and I am now charged with that. And we see him shoot the last guy and say the Battle of the Alamo is over. Of course, the Battle of Texas was not over, and the Alamo would inspire the Texans to fight on and eventually get freedom from Mexico. So now we have Saipan, and this is drawn by Jack Davis. And this, once again, the introduction here, the narrator says, a vet of World War II told the story to us. So maybe this is a true story. I don't think Harvey Kurtzman was making that shit up. So this is in 1944 when America's kind of mopping up the Japanese Empire, getting closer and closer to the actual island of Japan. And so they're on Saipan, and we see this American platoon, and they're under rifle fire. So they say, head for that shell hole on the ridge. The platoon leader is dead. They have no leader. And they hear someone coming through this cane field. It's an American Marine. And he says, pass the word, a bonsai attack is coming. They're coming right through the field. Take off as quick as you can. They could be right behind me for all I know. So the Americans realize this is not a good position to stand off against a bonsai charge. So they basically say, let's just go back down the road and we'll find a better position. And so these last two guys, one of them's holding the giant machine gun. He gets shot. His name's Bartoli. And line off here, he says, oh, I can't leave him. So he puts down his machine gun. Maybe you need two men to operate it, because I was like, why doesn't he use the machine gun? But he lays down in front of the cane field, just waiting, because he doesn't want to ditch Bartoli. So he's scared out of his wits. He doesn't know how many guys are going to be coming through this cane field, and it could be any second now. This is really interesting. Just the same exact panel to build the suspense. All we see is like flies moving. Just the stillness and quiet of this impending attack. I wonder if this is like the first time someone did this in comics, where they're just like, we're gonna stop time by just basically, I'm sure this panel was redrawn by Davis. It was like photocopied, but kind of interesting. It really worked. When I was reading it last night, I was just like on the edge of my bed. I was laying down reading it, and I was just like, oh shit, what's gonna happen? And they never seem to come. But he knows that they could be coming any second, so his heart is beating like a trip hammer. He can hear rifle fire up ahead, but he doesn't know if it's American rifle fire or Japanese. And then we see this little bombed out hut, and a half-naked Japanese man comes out with a samurai sword. It was a little confusing the way it's drawn, because it looks like he could look over and clearly see this American soldier, right? We can, but apparently he can't. So he's using his samurai sword to beat the bushes, because he knows there's an American soldier out there. I'm not sure how either. The story's a little confusing as well. But we see him in the background beating through the bushes. He can't see this American, so he's trying to find him. And now, Lykov, let me get that name right. Lykov? I always do this. Line off. He's like, I wonder where the platoon is. This is kind of an interesting shot where if this was a camera, it just slowly is rotating around line off. The angle slowly is changing until we're looking down the road here. And you can hear gunfire. Now, above this ridge, Linoff can't see him. We see an American, a bunch of soldiers, American soldiers. And they say, hey, look, that's Linoff down there. Why didn't he come with us? And then they notice the Japanese guy. And right in the distance here, we can see the Japanese guy about to kill Linoff. He's finally found him. They shoot him. They shoot the Japanese soldier. Or whoever he is. Maybe he's a civilian. And he's still through all this gunfire, he doesn't even realize that right behind him, this guy is getting shot. He's staring at the cane fields in dread. We see the Japanese guy fall, 2 bullet holes in him. And then finally, this bunch of soldiers hooks up with Linoff. And of course, Linoff's like, man, I'm glad to see you guys. He says, well, yeah, but the platoon needs that machine gun up on the ridge. And he says, Bartoli's hit. We got to get him out of here. He says, I'll take care of Bartoli. You get that machine gun up there. So he grabs the machine gun and he heads up to the ridge. And now they're really prepared for this bonsai attack with the machine gun all set up. But then an American commanding officer shows up. He says, Corporal, what's your platoon doing here? Move this platoon up. There's only 3 Japanese in that cane field. They're all dead. There's no bonsai attack. Let's go. And so this whole thing was just based on one little rumor, which I guess happens in war, you know? And of course, Harvey Kurtzman has to put in a little ironic thing where Linoff says, isn't that crazy? We were running away from a bonsai charge. There wasn't any Japanese anywhere near us. Sure is funny how a crazy rumor gets started. It sure is. And we see that Japanese guy who's going to kill him with the samurai sword dead in the bushes. He can't see him though. So once again, Harvey Kurtzman has to sneak in a little irony into every ending. This Jack Davis, I'm not as thrilled about as the last few issues. It's still damn good though. Jack Davis is so good, especially for war comics. He was just made for war, especially like World War II. Just the dirt and grime of World War II. You know, these soldiers with 5 o'clock shadow and they've been fighting for months on end. He just captures that, the dog-eared soldier. So there you go, guys. Two-Fisted Tales number 11. Once again, a stellar issue. These are so good, and rereading them again has been such a treat. How, like, 4 of the best artists in the world, all drawing for one magazine, one comic. It's kind of rare. A lot of anthologies, of course. There's always going to be one done there where it's just like, oh man, who let this guy in? And but yeah, Harvey Kurtzman knew what he had and he stuck with it. So I know there's going to be some new artists joining eventually, but for a while now it's just these same 4 amazing artists, all so good at war comics too, perfectly suited for these tales. So thanks for watching, guys, and I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.